Well, welcome to the 41st installation of the Talking Shit podcast. I am Dr. Evil Genius.
Mrs. Evil. Hi.
Yeah. Right now, our co-host on this panel, Captain Paul, is having some connection issues. He's on a boat. If we can get him in later, we will attempt to do just that. But as you can already see from the title and from the title of this thing, we're talking about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which was a landmark fetal prenatal termination law that was recognized by the Supreme Court. I guess the guaranteeing the constitutional right to prenatal termination. So I just want to make one thing clear at the outset. The Supreme Court did not rule on whether or not prenatal termination is a good thing or a bad thing. They ruled on a procedural ground because they ruled on a procedural ground because the Constitution does not guarantee any right to anything specific that way, especially when you're talking about prenatal termination. It just wasn't something that the Constitution made room for. It wasn't an issue in those times, because in those times you married before you carried, meaning that most people would not engage in risky behaviors if pregnancy would end up being an issue. So that wasn't something that was written into the Constitution. There was really no need for it at that time. So I just want to make it clear at the outset, the motivation for the law to be challenged was definitely on some morality, quasi-religious, grounds. Like that's why it was challenged. But the ruling of the court really had no choice if you're just going by the letter of the law. So I understand that there are comments in the dissenting opinion that talked about the importance of having access to prenatal termination. But the law, as far as whether or not it is constitutional, doesn't cover it at all. So I just kind of want to at least just broach the procedural portion of it at the outset, because I think that people very often conflate the two and make it a conservative versus liberal argument when it really is a letter of the law argument. Now, we're going to get into some of this philosophical stuff, some of the moral stuff, some of the rights stuff. We're going to get into that now. Normally, we are very irreverent when we cover topics, but we understand that this topic is a very sensitive topic, that while the opinions are going to vary greatly, we are going to show the proper respect and deference that that this very sensitive subject demands. So, Captain Paul, we're going to start with you, and we can at least hear you, even if your picture is a little frozen.
Is it frozen?
There you go.
No, I'm just standing still. That's it. So.
Right. Yeah, your face just froze again. I mean, it's gonna happen.
At least we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's a pretty background. You're good.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of an interesting decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. And as you know, I just kind of came in while you're mid-intro. pretty controversial at this time. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are rejoicing. So it's you know, it's a very interesting time right now. What's going on? So so what are we starting off with, giving our standpoints, or what are we doing right now?
Yeah, we're gonna start with you, man. Because the thing is, again, it is no secret that you and I are not in complete disagreement. We're also not completely aligned on the
Right.
subject, and I think that it is important to showcase these conversations. It's
Not
important.
yet.
It's important to showcase these conversations because they're important to have. I think that you have your echo chamber over here that's only recognizing one viewpoint. You have the echo chamber on the other side that's recognizing the other viewpoint. And there are a lot of positions that are in the middle or just completely outside of the context of the conversation that people want to relegate or reduce this issue to.
Right.
So I just kind of wanted to get your viewpoint, and then we can go point counterpoint and really try to lead the way as far as nuanced conversation on a very sensitive topic.
All right, so you want nuance. All right, I'll try my best. When it comes down to this and my personal feelings on it, I'm fine with it being overturned. It kind of kicks it back down to the state level where you can vote, decide whether the people want to have abortions or if they want to make it illegal or not. I'm completely fine with it in that regard. For me, abortion is a topic. And oh my God, it is hot outside right now. Abortion is a topic that I feel is a moral issue. People want to get into the minutia and say, they'll bring out outlier cases of incest or, I'm trying to word this carefully because of YouTube or
you're already screwed up with two terms already. So
well, whatever. Then I'm going full send. So the incest, rape, and then ectopic pregnancies, which would kill. Yeah, which would kill the mother. But that's such a small percentage and isn't the majority of the people getting these abortions done. The majority is women in their 20s that are fully healthy and not doing it for those particular reasons. So I feel like a lot of the conversation when it comes to this comes off as disingenuous if that's your only standpoint. Is that, dude, well, this, and this. I'm like, well, if you look at the percentages, that's nowhere even near the majority of abortions being done. And just for me, personally, I just think it's a moral issue of if you are going to have sexual intercourse and you're going to, be with someone intimately like that, you should be responsible enough to know the consequences of not wearing protection or if the
Can you
protection
angle
breaks.
the camera up a little bit? Because, yeah.
Nose.
Let me try to get in the shade because my fucking pale ass.
Yeah.
So you get to see the shit get dark behind me. So my thing is this: is that when it comes down to it, I feel like we just lack a lot of personal responsibility now. It's I don't know. It's a very peculiar situation because to me, I view it as a human life, and whether that being can sustain itself, I just feel like we just throw everything out the window and it's just a bunch of cells. I think there's some fallacy in that type of logic. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
well, I want to talk about one of the first points that you made about it being a moral issue. I object to moral issues being enshrined into law, period. Simply because everybody's interpretations of morals are different. So
can I say then why is murder allowed?
Why you believe that to be yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Why is murder allowed? Why is not allowed? Why is theft not allowed? These things are inherently not moral. And those are you people that do these acts go to jail or get hung or whatever. It's just there's usually consequences for actions, right? So it's just while I agree to you to like, I don't want religion pushing laws per se. I think with certain topics like this, you know, and I have to say this clearly, this isn't abortions being banned federally. It's just kicking it
Right,
back to the
because it's
state
not.
levels where the
Right,
people can vote on that. You know what I mean?
right,
So it's, you know, like for me, like a lot of the things that we see as problematic are moral issues, right? Like the morality of racism, right? Like being racist, that's fucked up. So there's a lot of situations I would view as moral that, you know, we both have a similar viewpoint on, and that we both would probably say is unjust. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making complete sense.
No, I get where you're coming from. I think that in the minds of people on the opposite side, they would say that it's abundantly less clear that someone who is unborn is absolutely alive versus somebody that we see and is sentient, and we already know that they are alive because you see them, they're in front of your face. And you know, killing a human being unjustly is something that society has already voted on, as we're all in agreement. This is not acceptable. So, and we continue to create more laws around extrajudicious killings in the form of manslaughter and homicide and murder. Like we are constantly changing those according to the sensibility of people of the time. When it
Right.
comes to prenatal termination, I believe that it is less clear because not everyone seems to be in agreement on whether or not it is as clear cut as a simple, I see a human being, I terminate that life, versus a human being that you can't see, a human being that has not displayed sentience, and in the vast majority of cases are not able to sustain themselves on their own. And so, you know, at least with a 5-year-old, they know how to shovel food in their face and take a shit, right?
But I would have to say, at one stage in all of our lives, we were what like some of these people would say don't have personhood, which I just think is traditionally that's a stupid way of phrasing it, but that's
Mm-hmm.
how people kind of justify it. I feel like for me, a lot of this just comes down to the ugly truth that I feel like in this generation and previous generations, like people don't want to talk about some of even the ethical issues of how Planned Parenthood and abortions were
Well,
funded and how they began.
before we get
But
into that,
Don't finish this one.
because he's, I want you to get in
no,
on
no,
the first point about the difference between how people view life and how people don't view life. What are your thoughts on that before we move on?
For that part, when Dr. Amy People and I were talking about it yesterday, I had more of the perspective of the smaller percentage of people who get an abortion or are more likely to get an abortion. So my argument is going to be for that smaller percentage, which I fully recognize that they're not part of the minority. But for me, being a 34-year-old woman who still wants children, just from an emotional standpoint, that's where I view it. As far as
Can you get into that a little bit more?
what?
The emotional viewpoint.
Oh,
of
so
it.
yeah, so the emotional viewpoint, as in what I told Dr. Evil yesterday, is I already have or have had issues with my own gynecologists not related to children. And then I was thinking about it from my own perspective of with the issues that I have already had in the past 6 years it's been, which then resulted in a surgery recently, which should have happened a long time ago, and that's its own story by itself. If I then go to have a child at my age, what are the risk levels for me, just looking at
Yeah.
what my health has been already in the past? And if it came down to it's me or the kid, and while that percentage or that likelihood is slim, I still have to recognize that it's more likely for me now than it would have been if we decided to have a child 10 years ago. And for me, then I think of it from emotional standpoint of, is it me or the kid? And I have to say that it is me, and it would not be the kid. Like, it would be the kid and not me. So I would be the one who lives, just to make it clear. Right. And I would try again. And that is, and I also want to say that, at least I believe for most women, when they do make that decision, that they are not going in saying, woo, I can't wait to kill my kid. And if it came between me and my kid, I'm not going, woo, I'm going to kill my kid so I can live. It's, we're not jumping for joy. And I think most are not jumping for joy, that is a hard decision, and that would be a difficult decision for me to make. But I do want to live and try to have a kid after, if it's physically possible.
Right. So for me, just kind of following up on that. Now, mind you, there are some states where their laws are completely outdated, and we could have a discussion about certain states fixing those and becoming more updated. But in states where those minorities that everyone brings up, there are exceptions of the rule, of the law, I should say, being like, where you can still get an abortion because of the mother having a risk of passing away, right? Like, we can have a discussion on that, and I don't inherently disagree that, the mother and the child, that's a difficult decision. That's up to the individual how they want to do it, right? Like, my mom had a similar situation where she was told if she had me, she'd die, and she still went forth with having me. Right. So I think it comes down to the individual. So I'm not going to demonize. I'm not trying to demonize anyone for their viewpoints of, like, there's a possibility, of, like, you dying, but obviously it's a very grave decision. That's a very difficult decision. So I'm not going to look down and, like, mock those people for that. It's just,
well, let me ask you this question directly. You're getting married next year, right? And we know that you firmly believe in marry before you carry. So my expectation is next year, after you marry, at some point after that, you're going to be faced with the prospect, the possibility, however minute, you're going to be faced with that prospect. So when you go to have this discussion with your lady, and she's having some sort of health complications, how do you expect you'll approach that kind of conversation?
Well, we've already had that type of conversation, because me and her just talk. So we'll just talk about a very different issue. Me and her look at abortion very similarly.
A little surprising to me, just a little bit.
I mean, it's one of those things that, and I'll fully admit, it's hard to tell exactly what I would think. Now, like I said, people that get those abortions due to those reasons, I don't look down upon them. I don't mock them. And sorry.
You have a problem with the people who are irresponsible.
That's my main issue, right? Like, if you get an abortion, and I apologize, this fishing boat's an idiot.
It's great. No, you're great right now.
Like, your background is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome, but you keep moving and it washes out, and then we can't see the boats behind you.
No. It's a fishing boat just got in the way of of a large ship, some stupid shit. But anyways, but like one of those things, like, for me, is that I don't look down upon people that get those because it's understandable to do so. I've always had the standpoint that, those shouldn't be illegal or not allowed to be having. My main, I guess, opposition when it comes to abortion comes down to the personal responsibility. And as for me and the girl, we've had a discussion on it. As of right now, we would probably go for, like me saying this right now, we'd want to go forth having the child. But, I'm going to say this honestly. If I'm dealing with the situation at hand of losing Laura, I don't know how I would react. So that's I'm just being honest and genuine. I don't know in the moment how I would handle that, because I love her, obviously, and I don't want to lose her. And it would definitely be a very difficult decision, and it would be up to her. I would probably, and I'll fully admit this, I would encourage her to abort the kid if that was the case.
Right.
But right. My thing is that when it comes to this conversation, people get so, like, fixated on these minority groups that I think should be allowed, right? That's why I think law you need more nuance. Like, my main thing with abortion, and when it comes down to it, is that, a lot of these abortions aren't done for those reasons, right? It's just like, well, didn't have protected sex, or condom didn't break. You know what I mean? Just various different issues, and I wasn't responsible. I feel like there's such a lack of accountability.
Well,
At
I think
least
if
in
the
my opinion.
condom breaks, you move to make a responsible decision, and the prophylactic failed. So,
Right.
I mean, that kind of has me kind of rethinking at least that portion of it. I wonder, and I don't have any data on this, but, I would then wonder, what are the rates of the people that if you surveyed them, before they went into Planned Parenthood or something, that they actually, tried something more substantial than the pullout method?
I mean, that would have to be something interesting, because I'll just say this, and I'm not going to say names, but I know people personally view way different viewpoints than me that, had the act, did the act or whatever, and they just had it unprotected. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like at some point it's like, all right, like, do you want kids or do you not want kids? And like, is your pullout game that weak? You know what I mean? Like, I want to know what exactly, like, are we adults here? Do we not, like, everyone's got the Googles these days. Like, you can't research, like, well, if I finish inside, what happens? Like, I'm pretty sure that should be common sense at that age.
Right. But here's the problem, Paul. Here's the problem. I would be more aligned with you on the subject, especially when we're talking about personal accountability, because I believe that both sides are having the wrong discussion. I've said this before. I'll continue to keep saying it. Whether or not you should have access to this, the real question is, are people acting responsibly and understanding that for every effect, there is a cause. So if you take out the cause, then you don't have to worry about the effect. And I think that a lot of people are looking to get away from personal accountability. That said, what about these kinds of situations where people tried to make the smart play? They tried to do the right thing. It didn't work, right? And then you have these laws that are also like kind of triggering other laws to now be brought forth to state legislatures, where they want to remove sex education. They want to remove access to contraception. So my thing is like, if you want to be anti prenatal termination, I'm not going to argue against that stance. But what I have a problem with is that you're taking away every opportunity for a person to then avoid the what do you call that, right, when conception, right? Like you're saying, well, we don't want you to get to this step, but we're going to take away tools that you can use to avoid getting to that step. And then that's where I think that we're starting to get into this weird quasi-religious thing, because now you want me to adhere to your sexual standard based upon your holy book, because that's what it says in your holy book. And now we're talking about infringing on the rights of Americans to not adhere to your religion. And that's a big thing to me.
Let him go first. I do have something on that, but let him go first.
So like when it kind of comes down to it, as for someone being an adult, having sex, and they have a child, I don't feel, I just being honest, I don't feel as bad for you, because you're an adult. You should know the consequences. And I don't even really say it's a consequence, but you should know what could possibly happen if you do have sex, right? Like, you see it in a lot of people. They have kids with a lot of different women, or women will have a lot of different fathers for their kids. Like, you should know the consequences of having that act, right? So regarding that, if the condom breaks, I'm like, well, you should go in there like, hey, there's a possible chance that if I go inside, I could have a kid. And I feel like if you aren't responsible enough to have a kid, I don't think you should be having sex. My opinion. If you're not mature enough,
should that be enshrined into a law? Should your opinion on someone else's life be enshrined into law? That's the question.
I mean, like, when it kind of comes down to it, I feel like with abortion, you're terminating a human life. Like, so it's like, for me, it's a protection of a group of people that has no voice for themselves. I mean, like, so on the flip side, should we allow abortions and make that a law because of your lack of personal responsibility, your lack of accountability? I mean, like, you can kind of flip it either way there. It's just, I get where you're coming from when it comes to the religion. I don't want to force any type of religious values on someone, but in some shape or form.
Because I think you're only addressing half of what I said. You're only addressing the abortion part. I said the same people that want to outlaw abortion also want to take access away to sex education and contraception. You can't have both, in my opinion.
So, but like, I don't necessarily align with that. I think sexual education within reason should be fine. Now, mind you, do I think a kindergartner should have to learn all this wacko shit that they wanted to try to pass? No.
Absolutely not, but they can't get pregnant anyway, so it's a moot point.
Right, but that's when it comes. This is the problem with this discussion, right? If you want to have actual real sex education for people that are going through puberty, that makes absolute sense.
Right.
But both sides go to the extremes on the other one. Like, oh, kindergarten should, like, learn about all these weird genders and that, like, you can have two penises and penises, like some wild stuff. And then the other side is like, well, you should just abstain until you're 28 years old and can afford a family. Like, there's the problem is, and this is happens with politics, is each side is so crazy with the fringe. There's no common sense. Like, I think I would have to say,
do we need the Indian Jesus?
The Indian Jesus. No, like, when it kind of comes down to it, is that it really kind of just. I think common sense education is fine. You know what I mean? It's just, I think the problem is with a lot of stuff they're trying to pass. Yeah, like, it's got to be age appropriate. A lot of the stuff they're trying to pass, I'm like, yo, I don't want my kindergarten first grader learning about, like, the 72 made up fucking genders. I don't think that does anything but.
No, but when we're talking about sex education, we're talking sex education as it pertains to this particular topic.
No, but I get what you're saying, but I'm pointing out that if you look at a lot of these bills they try to pass, that they pass under sex education, they incorporate all this goofy shit with it. I mean, like, if you just puberty age want to actually have the actual discussion and, like, inform kids of protection, I'm fine with. But the problem is, like I said, both sides have their wackadoodles. And they try to add a lot of shit that just doesn't need to be needed. So it's like, I get what you're saying, but at the same point, like, they've had laws bills they try to pass to try to, like, cross the line in a lot of ways.
Okay.
So like, everything, politics ruin a lot of these subjects.
Right. And on the availability of contraceptives.
Availability of contraceptives. Now, when you're saying that, do you mean, like, the ability to go to the store and actually buy,
No, some of these states want to ban access to contraceptives, full stop, on biblical reasoning.
No, that's goofy. That's stupid. But
do you see why some people are super upset? Because, the liberal argument would be, well, if you really cared about the babies, you would make sure that there's universal health care. You would make sure that they have food to eat and a roof over their head. But for many, the perception of people who are not conservatives, because there's more than just liberals out there that are critical of the conservative viewpoint on this. If you're talking to me that you're pro-life, then you should be pro-sustaining of the life. So if you're going to make somebody go to term on a pregnancy, how about making sure, if you want to say that they should get a fair shake at existing because they're people, right? Why not have good universal health care to make sure that these pregnancies go to term and have healthy births? Because there are women who are facing charges for miscarriages and stillbirths, right? There was a black woman in the South, it might have been Georgia, who got into an altercation with another woman while she was pregnant, and the woman pulled out a gun and shot her. She lost the baby and then faced murder charges for getting shot, right? Like, a lot of these laws that they're coming up with are just so beyond the pale that it makes it difficult to argue in either direction.
I mean, you would have to send me that case. I've never even heard of
Yeah.
that, so I don't know that. I can't really reference that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know why somebody's pulling out a gun on a pregnant woman anyway, but some people are just savages that way, and I don't mean that in the TSP savage way. I mean just people that just don't have humanity, right?
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of cases that once states started restricting prenatal terminations, that people would just have unsuccessful pregnancies and start facing felony charges.
What states? Like I don't.
I believe Mississippi might be one of them. Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but like, and this is what I've talked about with Mississippi, Alabama. I didn't reference it. It's like, hey, like, there's a lot of outdated, archaic laws that need to be improved. And that should kind of come down to a situation where it should be improved. But it's like, honestly, it's just some of this stuff is just, it's such a small, like, I've not even really heard of many of these cases you're talking about.
Yeah,
like, these aren't the standard.
because I'm on this side of the internet, and what I mean this side of the internet is that I spend a lot of time around people who are diametrically opposed to your ideologies. Not necessarily saying that I agree with all or even most of their positions, but I am more privy to paying attention to the instances that other people don't pay attention to because they're so staunch in their ideology. They're like, well, we need to look at these cases. And we're talking about right as people started challenging to force the Supreme Court to consider the Roe v. Wade landmark decision from what was 50 years ago. They've come back with a vengeance and start charging women simply because their pregnancies were unsuccessful. There was something you wanted to say earlier on.
I was just going to comment on the contraceptives part, especially since we are an unusual household. And I will also recognize that it's not a common makeup, both structurally and legally, the way we are structured. So I think for a lot of these topics, I'm going to think of it, of course, more firsthand and how it's going, selfishly, how it's going to impact me. Because one of the, as far as contraceptives go, one of the things that's on the table would directly impact our households because I am legally married to a woman. However, I do also have sex with a man. And I believe that we have been very responsible.
For all you guys that want to keep calling me an incel, okay?
There you go. This is proof.
Okay.
So on paper, if that goes through, and I have not read all the details, so it's possible that I am missing out some viewpoints. But as far as I understand it right now, from the information that I have right now, I would not qualify for contraceptives anymore, and because I'm legally married to a woman. I believe that Dr. Evil and I have been very responsible, even before the other misses.
Wait, so we're not moving to Alabama?
Damn it, no, we're not.
Sorry, Alabama.
I think that we have been very responsible in understanding that we are not in a position to have a child right now, or to raise a child, or take care of them. So we have
the way we want to.
The way we want to.
Right, because we could right now, but not the way that we believe that child would deserve, especially with how difficult the world is out there. We want them to have the easiest time in here.
So I would like to be able to have sex with my partner without a child coming along, because I don't want that. We don't. I mean,
but like in your state, for
example, you use contraceptives, right?
No, I don't.
So no So you. So
I pull out and I fucking finish on her face. And what do you guys want from me? Yo, like what? Yo, so
yeah. I will say the other thing when it comes to contraceptives that I think is not spoken about, and I don't know if this is the majority or the outlier. You guys are dumb. Is the hormonal balance for the woman. So if Dr. Evil and I were not together, I would have been on contraceptives anyway.
Yep.
For hormonal reasons.
Yep.
And I know many girls, especially starting off in high school, would begin for hormonal reasons, because if not, somebody would have to call the ambulance each month because I pass on the subway.
So no. So
she said one time she almost fell on the train tracks when the world started spinning underground. You know, she could have lost her life just because of these wild chemical imbalances that the contraceptives do help to regulate.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like, as for contraceptives, like I know in your state, New York, that's not going to change.
Yeah, it's not.
Like let's just be honest. Like I feel like
unless we get a Republican governor trying to push that.
No, it's not. It's you live in a blue state. Blue states aren't going to really see it. Like my states I live in, you're not going to see any change. I think this is where some of the conversation. Like if you want to have a conversation about Mississippi, Alabama, where like in Alabama is known for Nick Saban and sister fucking. Like it's a backwards ass.
I was gonna bring that. One of us should have, and I'm glad you did.
So like, I get it. It's a lot of outdated, crazy like stuff down in these southern states, but a lot of these southern states have a different look on a lot of these subjects. And you know, like I just like I would have to say, if I saw this, like I see all these protests, especially near me, I'm like, y'all, like this shit ain't gonna change for you in any way, shape, or form. You're in a blue state, like at all. It's just not gonna change. And as for contraceptives being available, I think they should be available. I think any state that doesn't allow them are backwards, because I actually knew a friend of mine that had a similar situation. She needed birth control. Wasn't because she didn't want to have kids, but because of the hormonal. I think it was like a hormonal imbalance or something of that nature, where like it messed with her bad. You get like super bad cramps or whatever. So like for me, I'm
something
like
PCOS or something.
Yeah, so it was something I don't remember off the top of my head, but like whatever.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, you know, pretty much everyone that views this topic the way they do, their everyday life really isn't going to change that much. I mean, like you see the protests in California. Like California's the most liberal state on the fucking planet. New York, same thing. Rhode Island, Massachusetts. It's just you go on and on.
Like, well, my counter to that argument though is if you a lot of these women have been indoctrinated into believing that fighting to be able to terminate the unborn is, a great right that we should have. And that bothers me, because we're the only species on the planet that has a large portion of our population as a species fighting to remove the next generation. We're the only species on the planet of any living being, right? But if you have been indoctrinated into this believing that this is, one of the most important rights you could ever have, right? Mm-hmm. Then I think that people that really do believe in it, they care about the ramifications for other people, even if those people don't live in their state. It's very similar to when George Floyd was murdered. You had over 30 million people around the world at protests simultaneously, because everybody is going to express their displeasure and their disapproval of what they believe is unjust. Because I think there's an old saying, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And so that was one of the slogans that this country was founded on. So I don't really have a problem with people in blue states getting riled up about what's happening in so-called red states for that reason.
But in red states, they're going to vote how they feel. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
but the thing is, you can't vote for your neighbor. You can only vote for yourself. If you don't want an abortion, don't get one.
What I'm saying is, people down south, if they feel so strongly about changing the laws, they will vote in a certain manner where they will see change, and it kicks it back to a state level. Like I don't see anything inherently wrong, and I think there's different. I know people from down south. In a lot of those states, I'm not saying every single person. There's a different moral fiber down there. They view this subject in a very different manner than what people up in the Northeast or people on California look at it.
Right.
I'm just saying from personal experience, it's a very different outlook. Now, mind you, are there people that down south are are pro-abortion, absolutely, but there's more. I would have to say there's more people down south that are pro-life than pro-abortion.
Right. But the thing is, for the people that aren't, it's really none of your fucking business. And the thing is, I want to make it very fucking clear to anybody watching this. I am staunchly anti-abortion. However, it is none of my fucking business. As long as you're not trying to abort my kid, then you can do whatever the fuck you want to do to your goddamn self.
Well,
Bruce is like, why not just wrap it up, bro? Problem solved. Bruce, you just missed the part where we covered the fact that some of these states.
Chappelle has ruined me for life.
Yeah. Wrap it up, B. See, Bruce, like I am in your group, but then the thing is, the same people that want to repeal the right to prenatal termination also want to take away access to contraceptives. Like, you're never going to get me to support something like that, no matter how much against abortion I am, because you can't say, well, we need you to weld this thing on this bridge before the bridge falls, but you're not allowed to have any protective equipment. What? Then no, I'm not going to do that. Go fuck yourself. Like, you can't have it both ways. Right.
I mean, I think Bruce is.
And Bruce, we already covered this earlier, but to reiterate, I am anti-abortion, but there are things that that need to be considered. In we're talking about incest, rape, ectopic pregnancy, or a pregnancy that is likely to result in the termination of the adult life. Because remember, you can be as pro-life as you want to be, but if it's a choice between the baby and the mother, there is no pro-life stance there, because someone's going to die either way. So we need to have a nuanced approach to this. So as far as no exceptions, no, there's always supposed to be an exception to every rule. And in cases of people being pregnant against their will, and I'm talking about because they had sex against their will, or, their genetics didn't make it where it's healthy enough for them or the baby to survive. Obviously, that option should exist. But again, as Paul has continually stated, 8 out of every 100 cases is what that applies to. When we're talking about the other 92. If we can cut that in half and say, how about we make smarter decisions when we have sex, and we cut that rate in half, then you can make the case that, prenatal termination is healthcare. But when you have so many people acting irresponsibly to say, hey, I'll just go get it, I'll just swallow a pill, or I'll go get it vacuumed out, or whatever it is that they do. I don't know what the fuck they do anymore. When people when they just kind of look at it as a rite of passage, rather than the weighty decision that it needs to be. And the thing is, I got this from her. When we talked about this years ago, like, the people who are in that, and this is the thing that I got to go on a little mini rant on this part. The people who are crying about this law being taken down, let's face it, a good majority of them have no chance of ever being put in that position. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Right? All of the people that want to call themselves allies and all of this, you got all the male feminists. Dude, you're never going to lead. You're never going to present a woman with the decision of whether to terminate or not, because you ain't getting no pussy.
No, you're not even getting a crumb of it. Not even a sniff.
And the thing is, you holding up these signs alongside them, they still don't want to fuck you. No. So let's just get that out there right now, right? But everybody wants to turn it into a blue team versus red team issue. No, there are real people at the center of this. This is no different than the trans issue. You got all of these allies flapping their fucking gums, but the actual trans people are suffering, and they have actual lives that they are trying to make sense of. And you got all of these people waving around pom-poms. It deserves more respect than that. It deserves more introspect. It deserves more consideration. It deserves more analysis than all of this fucking us versus them bullshit. There are real women that are facing really difficult decisions. Some of these women are fucking pregnant secretly because they're worried about, you know, what's going to happen to them if anybody even knows.
Which is why I was saying they're not like, I don't believe most are lining up at the abortion clinic going, whoop, this is a great day, and then I'm going to have ice cream later because I'm so happy to do this.
They're
Like,
probably still going to have ice cream later.
they're still going to have ice cream. I would have ice cream later.
Yeah.
I'm going to have ice cream later.
And brownies.
Oh, stop it. But there is an emotional and a psychological toll that they have to be, and that they have to live with, which is why, from my perspective,
there's also physical consequences
they have to live with.
Yep.
I do not have to live with, and I hope to never be in a situation where I have to make that decision and live with it. But they are the ones who have to live with that choice.
Yep.
And for that, it's part of the reason why I think that it's on them and it's their choice, and you have to live with that choice. If you are the type to go, whoa, I can't wait to do this. This is the 5th time I've done it, and you're happy to do it. When you then choose to have a child, is your body going to allow you, or is your body going to say, you've terminated 5 already,
and we're going to keep
not
doing
allowed.
That. Right, and you're going to, and it's going to keep happening.
That was your choice. That was on you.
Yep.
It was not my choice.
Yep.
And I think you have to live with it.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we're talking about this subject, because you compared it to murder, right? You compared it to murder earlier, right? The thing is that when you go and you take somebody's life outside of you, right? That is something where people then have to worry, are you then going to do that to somebody else, and could I be next? In this situation, it's not even like that. It's like, well, I didn't value my own offspring. That does not translate to, I'm going to go out and try to take away your offspring or take away your life. And I think that for me, when I just kind of analyze the differences between the two, that is a really marked difference. Now, there's also the other side where are people going to start advocating for postnatal termination? Like, oh, I'm having trouble with these terrible twos. Should I be allowed to terminate that too? Like, I have concerns about that. Albeit a small concern, but it's a real thing.
Like you're still taking human life. So like, what is like to me? I get where you're coming from, but like, with outside of those small minorities, you should know exactly what you're doing. It's still a human life. I hate that whole personhood bullshit. Every single person on this earth was once a fetus. Mm-hmm. That is how we developed into what we are now. Whether it be, you know, assholes like us right now, or kind, caring people like, you know, your girl, Mrs. Evil. You know, everyone goes through that phase. So, like, for me, you know, like, it's like, you know, like, I guess, like, what's the point where every mother, like, everyone that doesn't want to have a child is inconvenient or they're not responsible? Like, so what, like you said, is there going to be, like, a wave of Casey Anthony's that are just, like, putting their kids in trash bags and throwing them in the river? Like, let's be real. Like, it's just, to me, there's, like, it's still a human life. Yeah. And that's where I staunchly disagree. You know, like, I can see the circumstances where it's like, okay, like, the mother dying, the rape, the incest, like, you know, okay, I can understand where these type of pregnancies shouldn't have even happened in the first place, right? But when you go and have the act as an adult, I'm like, yo, is it really that fucking difficult to ask? Like, like, so when this happens here and that goes there, there's a possibility of a pregnancy. Like, I don't think that's a wild fucking statement to have. And like, so like, you know, like, so like for me, it kind of comes down to the personal responsibility. And I'm going to say this right now. To me, Planned Parenthood is more racist than police officers. Like, we had this discussion.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. You want to answer the question?
What's that? So what do you wrap it up or do the birthing? Me? I mean, shit, I just pull out, bro. Like, yo, let's shooting out in these streets, bro. Yo, like, listen, like, I've had some cases where I thought she was going to be pregnant. Like, I was actually, like, I wouldn't look at that as a bad thing. It's like, there was a possible chance, but like, your boys got
that go against her morals, like pregnancy before marriage?
No. We relax Catholics up in this bitch. Like, we relax. So it's like, so, like, you know, like, but you know, all jokes aside, it's just like when it comes down to it. See, I'm fine with people having sex before marriage. I don't make this as some weirdo Christian thing. I'm just saying, like, if I have a kid, I can I can afford it right now, as you know. I can take care of my kid. You know, I'm an responsible adult. You know what I mean?
But you say you don't want to make it a weirdo Christian thing, right?
Uh-huh.
But we have to also admit that the challenges to these laws at the state level are based on weirdo Christian shit.
Yeah, I like, but that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't disagree with you, and I think we should adjust those laws, and people should vote properly so that they pull out. Listen, bro, like if your game's weak, your game's weak. Your boys ain't. So, but like,
yo, my pull-out game is weak because I'm already asleep. Like the last 3 pumps, I'm already asleep.
You're like, roll them off. You should have landed on your side of the bed. Here goes a tissue.
But like, so
I'm already dead.
Yeah, so like my thing is this, bro, is that like all jokes aside, like, you know, if you don't want to just be, you know, I'm not saying people do what I do, right? I'm a savage, so if finished inside and she has a kid, I don't mind. But if you are in a situation where you don't have a kid, either, you know, wrap it up, birth control, or, you know, pull out, or just don't have sex. Like if you can't, like, this is my biggest suggestion.
You don't like the feeling of condoms. That's what it is.
Yeah, like it's weird, right? But like, yo, it's got to be all natural. But for me, you know, because we've had this argument, I'm going to switch it to this, is that I think you say policing's racist or has a nature of history of racism.
Yeah.
But I would argue Planned Parenthood is far more racist than policing ever could be.
I would
because they target minority groups and black people. Like, who has the most amount of abortions?
Yep.
Right? Especially definitely in the precipice, because they want eugenics. They want
of all black pregnancies since 1970 have ended in prenatal termination. And we're the only minority group in the country that did not grow in market share since that time. Every other minority group has risen because, you know, white people are on the decline. They're now officially not the minority. They're like 46% of the population now, right? Down from 54% of the population in the 2010 census. Now, with black people, we've been 12% and we're still 12%. Well, that's what happens when half of your pregnancies end up in prenatal termination. And, you know, you're also seeing, you know, situations in the past where if a woman has committed a black woman has committed a crime, they're trying to entice her for a lower sentence to get chemically or physically sterilized. Mm-hmm. Right? They're not doing that in well-to-do white neighborhoods. They're doing that in poor black neighborhoods. So I do want to also put that out there. All of this fervor, all of this feminist fervor that everybody's encouraging black women to engage in is normally to the detriment exclusively to black women. And it makes their quality of life worse. It encourages people to continue to disrespect them, because when white feminists are going to go out and live their lives, they're going to go out there, they're eventually going to get the outcome that they want. They're going to end up marrying whatever man that they want. But for black women, the consequences are more dire following that ideology. And it is the shining example would be the Planned Parenthood example. Like really trying to get you more than anybody else to remove the next generation. So
I would have to say this, and this is going to be a controversial statement, but I'll just say it.
I can't put this up, Bruce, but do you want to read this comment on YouTube? I can't.
That's a Patreon comment.
Yeah, that's a Patreon comment.
We do Patreon.
I mean, I would disagree. It's not overrated, but, you know, is that the comment we talking about?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Nah, bro, listen, I risk it all. You know what I mean? So,
well, he did say agreed. So, I mean, we do have a woman on the panel. You know, what's...
That's a Patreon conversation.
So,
you ain't getting that one for free. We have to pay the Patreon price.
So, like, this is my thing, is that, I mean, Democrats are the main proponents of pushing forward Planned Parenthood, correct?
That is true, but one of the things
No,
that
no,
I
no, no,
noticed
but
when we had the first conversation, when the decision, the draft was leaked, one of the things that I did not think about and that I did not know is that there are a bunch of pro-choice conservatives and a bunch of pro-life liberals as well. So I think that kind of muddies it up because everybody thinks
no,
that
no, no,
both
but
sides are a
listen, I'm
monolith.
not.
Not the
No, no,
case.
but I would agree with you, but I'm not. I'm saying if you're a Democrat, you generally, if you're a politician, you support
Generally,
pro-choice,
right.
So it's not, it's just one of those things. And to me, and this is what I feel like the Democratic Party does to a lot of people. And listen, Republicans have their own problem. Is I feel like this issue is so messed up in a lot of ways because they have terminated a lot of black life. Um, I would inherently have to argue that I feel like the Democratic Party, because people want to say is how would I put this, is the proponent of black people, like they lift people on black people on pedestals. I think the Democratic Party is just as damaging, if not more so, than the Republican Party.
A lot of black men feel that way, in particular.
Because like I feel like, it's like they try to make it so that you have to depend on them, and they use people
You
with
don't really
minorities.
depend on them; they don't do shit for you.
But my
You can
thing is
say
they
that they're dependent, but what can you depend on if there's nothing there to depend on? The only thing you are is a vote to them.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that they try to make it so you have to depend on them. They're like, oh, here's this, this, and this. And they use people of minorities, not just black people of minorities. They use them as like token things, like, oh, I can just count on this vote because I'm Democrat, not actually follow through with any of my promises. Now, mind you, there is the other side of the Republicans where they do that with the evangelicals, right? Where it's like, oh, well, we'll do this and Jesus and all that, and never fucking happens. So, but like, I think like what I'm trying to say here is that I think one thing I'm hoping is that people stop just looking down party lines. Like there is nuance with this situation. I'll fully, agree with that. Like I'm staunchly opposed to abortion outside the outliers, but it's just I don't know. It's weird how I've seen people, like especially in my personal life, like if you voted this way, or I mean not voted, but like, if you look at this issue this way, don't talk to me, unfriend me, or vice versa the other way. It's just like.
I'm glad they did that to you, though, because it helped give birth to the Talking Shit podcast.
Yeah, but like like I even had family members with this abortion stuff, and they're like, oh, like if you agree with Roe v. Wade being taken down, don't talk to me and all this stuff, or unfriend me, I don't want to be related to you, or whatever, some wild shit. And I'm like, yo, like. It's laughable in a sense because we're no longer able to have a dialogue with one another, which is why we started this platform. I'm just going to put myself in this echo chamber and not talk to anyone. And like, if anyone that voices my viewpoint doesn't put anything that I agree with, I'm not going to entertain it. And it's just.
And what do you learn from that? From only listening to people that you agree with? What is gained there?
Nothing. No, you don't learn anything. Like, listen,
Bruce is stuck on that, yo.
Yeah.
Bruce is stuck. He is stuck on that point.
Bruce, I'll say this.
Bruce needs some relief.
Bruce, listen, I got some links to you. I'll send you if you sign up on Patreon. I'll hook you up. So, but anyways.
Yeah, we haven't put anything up on the Patreon. We definitely should now.
Yeah, we definitely will. But when it kind of comes down to it, is I just see like a lack of being able to have a dialogue regarding this issue, and I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering. For this issue, obviously on the left, it's like, listen, like it's just going to push it back to the states, and most people that view this issue the way they do live in states, very, very blue states. Like it's just not going to change. I mean, I guess that's kind of my thought process on this. And is there problematic laws in other states of red? Yeah, and we can have a discussion, but people can also down there vote how they want to vote on this issue. It's just,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just think that, for a lot of people that are in situations already with the laws being what they were, I think it's a little unfair to them because remember, a lot of there were trigger laws that were created in the event that there's an official announcement. it's automatic. Like you had, there was one doctor who performed a prenatal terminations, who said that she had a woman on the phone as the announcement was made, who was on her way to getting the procedure done, and the doctor was like you don't understand. Like as soon as it is announced, I cannot, but I'm already on my way. No. So I feel for those people as well to a certain extent. Like I said, you know, I don't think that I don't think that prenatal termination is a good thing. I don't think that it is something that we should be fighting for. There's a lot of things we should be fighting for. We should be fighting for workers' rights. We should be fighting for healthcare. We should be fighting for privacy, more expansive privacy laws. And you know, I think that, you know, being, again, I just keep going back to the biology of it. You know, we're the only species on the planet arguing over whether we should violate the biological imperative that all living organisms are born with. Like I think that it is completely insane that this is a conversation, but this is the world that we're living in, and I think that we should, you know, we should at least first recognize that it is definitely more sensitive than for or against.
Right. And I hate to cut this short, but I've been on here for an hour. I gotta start heading out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to wrap it up now or.
No, I mean you can say your bit, and then I want her to say a couple of things before we bounce.
Alrighty. So, if you've gotten through this stream or video, whatever, as far as you have, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to grow. We need to talk about a lot of different shit. So, but as for the abortion thing, then I know where you know where I stand. Everyone who watches knows where I stand. I just feel like there's got to be more personal accountability. Is there outlier cases? Absolutely. But
yeah, we're in total agreement on that point, though.
I feel like hey, more personal responsibility. These outlier cases aren't the majority. You know, I don't think it's so crazy ass for people just to, if they can't afford to have kids, you know, various different ways to make sure you don't have them. So that's my opinion. I got to get out of here, boys and girls.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Cap.
See ya.
Later.
Of course, he had to go back to portrait mode before he gets the fuck out of here. You know,
portrait mode.
You know, some closing thoughts. I just think that I don't really like the way that the process went down with the repeal. Not necessarily because I disagree with the repeal, but I don't like the politics that enabled this to happen the way it did. I don't think that enough people are talking about that. I think that it was a really dirty thing for the red politicians to engage in. I think that with the leak of the draft, you know, the promise was that it was just the opening salvo in negotiations as far as how they were going to interpret the constitutionality of prenatal termination and or the constitutionality of the landmark ruling Roe v. Wade. And I think that it was more on philosophical reasons on both sides. And, you know, I think that the agreeing opinion, I thought that a lot of it was rooted properly in the letter of the law or the letter of the Constitution, and let the states decide. But I thought that a lot of the added commentary from Clarence Thomas and the other conservatives, I thought the added commentary from the so-called liberal justices, I had a problem with how they started with their personal opinions not only on this, but also on the Second Amendment issue. I have a huge problem with Supreme Court justices bringing their own personal ideologies when they're supposed to be the most trusted legal minds in the country. Not the best legal minds, but they're supposed to be the most trusted. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be unbiased. And what we saw over the last couple of days with not only the decisions that were handed down, whether I agree with the decisions or not, is immaterial. I don't like the way any of the justices, from what I've seen, conducted themselves, especially when it came to their written opinions on both matters, both the prenatal termination, the Roe v. Wade, and the Second Amendment issue, where they were challenging the New York State ban on concealed carry permits for pistols, right? So I think that this is going to lead to a much worse society, because now they're going to be targeting availability of contraceptives. They're going to be targeting whether or not, the rainbow people are going to be able to enshrine their unions legally. And my views on that have changed since the past. It's like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to call yourselves married, I don't see a problem with that. Because I can't, the only thought process against that would be a moralist kind of approach. And if we don't want there to be people's weird ass morals in the law, then rainbow people should be able to get married, right? So I don't have a problem with that, right? But now you're going to have these laws that are going to target that. They're going to target anti-segregation laws. They're going to be targeting interracial marriage laws, and then using these weirdo fucking moralist arguments to try to force their way of life on somebody else. And the people that are doing this are the same people fear-mongering about Sharia law. And the way that they are going about these things, what's so different between this and Sharia law? The same Sharia law that you want to tell American women that they should be afraid of, but then you're coming with all of these weird-ass moralist arguments about why somebody is not allowed to do what they want to do with their own lives. And the more that I think about it, the more I have a problem with it. As anti-abortion as I am, I have a problem with the fear-mongering. And you know how I express my anti-abortion views? I don't get them. I don't put women in a position to think about whether or not that's the move they should make. And that's my thoughts on it. Yours?
Yeah, I think whatever it is you want to do with your life, that's up to you. I do not want to be in a position where I would have to make that choice. Thing that I'm...
And your behavior befits that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like if something happened tomorrow where I suddenly became pregnant and the IUD stopped working, which is completely possible, then we'd have a conversation. And I don't think abortion would be part of that conversation. There would only be under the extreme circumstances or the more unlikely circumstances, but still one that we have to think about and plan for, plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Right.
I think the thing that I'm most worried about is while this is a blue state, and Captain Paul made the point of some of the things we're worried about is not likely to happen.
Right.
However, after the last elections, and when we really zoomed in and drilled down the color distribution in the state, we're a pretty red state for a blue state. So
every state is that way,
right? But I
geographically
speaking. But we do live within the 5 boroughs, so
yeah.
Regardless of color, I don't see that as a shield to the things that we are worried about or the possible changes in the future. I fear a snowball effect happening, and then we're like, oh shit, we never expected that to happen.
Unintended consequences
has happened like that already within the past 10 years. So that's what I'm concerned about from a completely selfish perspective. Yes, I care about other people, but at the moment, I'm thinking about how it affects us in this house.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my opinion. We'll probably chat more about it and come watch MMA later.
Oh yeah, yeah,
We'll be back
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, we'll have.
So Bon Boon, we'll be back later for actual MMA stuff. We are coming back. If
Yeah.
we're still here.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure, honestly, and I think that we are probably in agreement on this. We really wanted to avoid talking about this, especially right now with tensions being as high as they are. But if you're silent on an issue, people tend to assign an opinion to you, and we wanted to make sure that we spoke for ourselves on this issue. So we thank you for coming through, and I don't know if you're watching this live, we appreciate you. If you are watching this later on, or even a future clip of this discussion, we do appreciate you. We want to hear all of your opinions, whether you concur or dissent. We believe that all opinions are valuable. And so we'll check you guys on the next one. Thank you for dropping by. Talking Shit Podcast, episode 41, the fallout of the repeal of Roe v. Wade.
Bye.